Tottenham's woes continue on Merseyside. Igor Tudor's reign at Tottenham has been one to forget. 4 games in charge, 4 defeats. The nadir, arguably, the trip to Madrid in midweek, a 5-2 defeat in the Champions League. That tie all but done. All the focus now goes on staying up in the Premier League. Tolu, they go to Liverpool at the weekend. I'm surprised personally Igor Tudor's still in the job at the time of recording, this being a Thursday. So I assume he's going to be in the job for Sunday. Is this going to be his last hurrah if Spurs fall to another defeat?
I don't know who takes the decision at Spurs, but it's not working. It is not working. I did say, I think it was the last recording, I said, look, he isn't the guy to get in for a team like Spurs who are fighting to stay in the Premier League. He's a system guy. Tried to change too much, too quickly. He took up the goalkeeper after 17, 18 minutes in that game. I'm not saying that's a bad decision, but obviously the goalkeeper was having a torrid time. But it was his call to put the goalkeeper in anyway. So, and the fact that he went to the press conference and answered a couple of questions with no comment, no comment. I don't think I remember the last time the top manager in Premier League went to a presser and said no comment to a couple of questions. So it almost shows like he's out of his depth. I think that this Spurs team, if they were challenging for something, he probably could have made an impact. But I feel like they don't need, I don't think what Spurs need now is a strong hand that Igor Tudor is offering, because you look at his character and he looks like a no-nonsense guy who, if you make a mistake, doesn't talk to you, takes you out of the team, puts somebody else in. I don't think that's going to work here. They're going to miss, obviously, Van de Ven. That's a huge miss for them going to Liverpool. And historically, believe it or not, this is the highest scoring Premier League game of all time, Liverpool against Tottenham. So one thing you can be sure of is there will be goals in this one. Our Spurs are still stuck with Igor Tudor is a big worry for me. I don't know what the rationale around hiring him was. If you probably looked at the betting angles and the betting odds for the next Tottenham manager after Thomas Frank was sacked, I'm very, very certain Igor Tudor's name, if there was a list of 2,000, Igor Tudor's name was never going to be on that 2,000. Somehow, someone upstairs at Tottenham gave him a call and thought he was the right man. Obviously, that is a choice that, if Tottenham aren't careful, could be one that bites them in the backside for a while.
Absolutely. I mean, we're talking about what league Tottenham are going to be playing in next season. They don't even have a permanent manager yet. It's not going to be Igor Tudor, but if Tottenham are in the Championship, it's an even less attractive job. So that's another set of shoes they have to fill. But in terms of Liverpool, let's focus on them. They lost their last Premier League game. They also lost in midweek to Galatasaray in the Champions League. A very narrow defeat in Turkey, just 1-0. So a lot to play for in the second leg, but a lot to play for in terms of the top 5 in the Premier League, Tolu. So will they be identifying not just this game, but also having a very keen look at what happens at Old Trafford that same afternoon?
Well, Igor Tudor, like I said, was not a fit for Tottenham. All of a sudden, I'm starting to think that Arne Slot kind of gaslights Liverpool fans. You play one weekend, he says one thing, and then he comes out after the Galatasaray game and says, we've played them enough times for you to know that they're a difficult team to beat. Hey, a lot of teams beat them already. They have to go through the playoffs to get to this round of the competition. And for every defeat that Liverpool suffer, he always seems to have one complaint or the other. And I think it's starting to really frustrate even the staunchest of Liverpool fans. I thought they were really, really clueless in that first game against Galatasaray, which is something that doesn't happen, especially in a crunch game like that in the Champions League knockout round. He has to really get his acts together. I always thought, especially when I saw them play during the group stage, that during the league phase, that this was probably a realistic trophy for Liverpool to maybe pick up. But after the draw for the round of 16, and when you look at all the teams on their side of the draw and the way Liverpool are playing at the moment, you probably will say that for a team that spent upwards of 300 million in the transfer window, and the best player in the last few weeks has been Ryan Gamoa, the young man who comes off the bench, it's not working at all. Fortunately for them, they're playing Spurs this weekend, which I think is the only silver lining for them. I don't think Liverpool are a great team any longer, especially under Arne Slot. I think at the moment, they're not particularly gelling. I think we can all now agree that Mo Salah has passed his prime. I think we didn't know whether it was a blip or whether or not he was going through a rough patch I think now we're convinced that, yes, that's the end of the Mo Salah we all knew. But I think Liverpool are lucky they're playing Spurs. I think they're not going to dominate Spurs because they're better than Spurs. I think they're going to dominate Spurs because Spurs aren't any better this weekend. It remains to be seen how he sets up for this one once again. Florian Wirtz was good to see him against Galatasaray, so he is fit. He should start. Like we said for Chelsea against Newcastle, both have got Champions League games. But I think even the Spurs fans would probably shoot Igor Tudor's head off if he tries to rest any players for the return leg against Atletico. I think that's gone. Liverpool, on the other hand, still have a real good chance of knocking out Galatasaray. So does he change it around a bit? I'm not sure how he does that. Maybe goes for Kirkesh or Andy Robertson at fullback, maybe Joe Gomez. You have to make those little changes around. It's a lot of games, so you obviously have to rest players. I'd really like to see him give Ryan Gamoa a shot at going, starting the game against Spurs. I think Spurs are bereft of a lot of confidence. I don't think you want someone like Salah, whose confidence is very low now. You're probably giving Gamoa a chance, and he runs right at that Tottenham backline, who don't have the pace that they've always thought they had. Jet Spence, obviously, is one of the few ones that you can put your hand on and say he's probably having a decent season. But without Van de Ven, I think Liverpool will probably have too much for Spurs. I worry for Spurs in this one, to be honest, because this is not a ground that they've done particularly well at. And even when they were a decent Spurs team, not to talk of when they're a Spurs team trying to avoid relegation.
In terms of Tottenham and their relegation woes, for every week in the last month or so, it's been a case of, well, they're 7 points clear of the drop zone, then 5, and then 4, and so on. So the margin of error is now to the point where if results go against them at the weekend, they will be in the bottom 3. Does that lead to a greater sense of urgency, which we'll see on the pitch on Sunday, or is it going to be more of the same because the confidence is so low at the club?
I've always always put myself in this situation where a team that you expect to be a top team, challenging for trophies, has to fight to stay in the league. These Spurs players, I don't think they have the experience of doing that. I think they're probably still a little naive up until the last few weeks. I think they're probably a little naive. And I think even the guys on the board were a little naive about the fact that Spurs were actually in relegation trouble. Look, it's difficult. A relegation scrap is a difficult thing, no matter who you are. And I think Spurs are finding out that it's not a matter of playing well. Now it's about getting results. You look at the guys they've got in their team, and there's this, look, you look at the teams around them, you look at Leeds, the way they're playing with a lot of desire, maybe not a lot of quality, but a lot of desire. You look at West Ham, same thing. Not a lot of quality, but a lot of desire. You look at all the teams in that fight. Nottingham Forest also, under the new manager, he's prioritized running, closing teams down, and staying in games. Spurs aren't doing any of that. I feel like they still feel they're Spurs. They've got better players than the opposition, and their quality should count. At this stage of the season, it's not about quality. Look at even the top teams in the Premier League now. City and Arsenal will go for the Premier League title. Look at the games in the last few weeks. And it's not been about quality. It's literally being about just doing enough to get the results. Spurs aren't doing that at the moment. And they've got some of the most important players picking up silly suspensions. Van de Ven isn't going to play. Christian Romero, like you know, he spends more time writing stuff about how the club is badly run and how things aren't going well, rather than putting on performances on pitch. Dominic Solanke, he looks like the one bright spot, but he doesn't even get selected by Igor Tudor to start games. So it's a real problem at the moment. It's a real mess. I would really love to see one Spurs in the last 2 seasons. I haven't seen Spurs play back-to-back games with a lot of intensity. And that's why they finished 17th the previous season. And that's why they're still in trouble this year. I struggle to see how they'll turn it around. I still feel like they've got to sack the manager now. It's very important that they do. But for some reason, they don't think they have to. I don't think they've got the legs, and I don't think they've got the desire, and I don't think the players in the team at the moment, I don't think they have what it takes to get Spurs out of this relegation trouble. The problem for them is, look, if Spurs go down, 80% of that team will walk into any other Premier League team. And that's why you worry about why they couldn't make it work at Spurs.
Well, Spurs players not doing their job. Your job, Tolu, is to give me your betting insight. So which way is the money going on Sunday?
everyone seems to be wiping the floor with Spurs, so I'm going to go Liverpool to wipe the floor with Spurs this week, and I probably will go in the handicap market. Probably go Liverpool -1, so I'm guessing they'll win by 2 clear goals at least against Spurs this weekend. And I also know that Spurs, for all that you say about them, they still manage to get goals. So I probably would go Liverpool -1. And then if you've got the heart for it, I probably would go Liverpool to win and both teams to score.
Well, further bad news for Tottenham. It might be a bit of good news a few days later if Igor Tudor gets the chop. We'll find out that next week. Tolu, thanks for your time as always.
Thank you very much, Dan.